The date is June 4th, 1942. The Japanese moved their fleet through the Pacific, getting closer and closer to Midway.
The Battle of Midway marked a turning point in World War II as it crippled the Japanese Navy, shifted the balance of power in favor to the United States, and greatened the U.S. control of the Pacific.
The beginning of World War II was sparked not only by the German invasion of Poland, but also by a heavy increase in hyper-nationalism, jingoism, and Chauvinism worldwide, specifically for the countries involved in the conflicts. This is shown by the dedication that the Japanese withheld, not only in their culture, but also in their representationism. Japan's main reasoning behind capturing Midway was to use it as a base for bombing and eradicating Hawaiian ships and bases.
Around 2 years before the Battle of Midway, Japan started to take the role of the hyper-expansionist empire. This led to the takeover of many crucial islands, such as the Solomon Islands, Guadalcanal, Guam, Okinawa, and soon-to-be Midway. They even massacred the Chinese. While the Japanese were expanding their territory, they decided to attack Hawaii, which caused the Battle of Pearl Harbor on December 7th. This attack aggravated the USA, starting their long rivalry in the Pacific.
The U.S. soldiers were ready for what was about to happen. A PBY Catalina was on a reconnaissance mission when it spotted the Japanese supergroup heading for Midway. During the Battle of Midway, the devastating news shocked people at home. Following the battle, there was likely a shared sense of American pride and a feeling that the Japanese had received their deserved punishment.
The Japanese underestimated the power of America during this time. As such, they probably made mistakes when calculating the risks of undergoing the battle. Additionally, they were far more morbid from having to experience a loss in the Battle of the Coral Sea. The Japanese did not have the correct tactics and were strategically overpowered by the Americans. Many of them had likely given up mentally and had lost a sense of national pride. During World War II, American cryptanalysts were able to crack the Japanese code in 1942. Upon gaining access, they discovered that the Japanese were planning to launch an attack on an island in the Pacific, with the code name AF. However, the Americans were unsure which island was being referred to. To gain an advantage, they sent out false messages from islands such as Midway, hoping to provoke a reaction from the Japanese. The Japanese responded by stating that AF was running low in fresh water. The cryptanalysts knew that AF was a codename for Midway, as it was the only island that had a reported shortage of water. With this information, the Americans were able to confirm the planned attack on Midway and strategically move their ships to counter the Japanese fleet.
Now let's talk about the battle itself. About 200 miles off the island of Midway, there were 3 American aircraft carriers named the USS Yorktown, the USS Hornet, and the USS Enterprise. These Yorktown-class aircraft carriers were loaded with many different types of aircraft, including the F-4F Wildcat fighters, the SBD Douglas dive bombers, and the McDonnell Douglas TBD Devastator torpedo bombers.
Up against the U.S. ships were 4 of the 6 Japanese supercarriers, Nakagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiru. These supercarriers were ordered to Midway by Hirohito and were commanded by Admiral Yamamoto. These supercarriers had Japanese aircraft on them such as the Mitsubishi A6M0, the Aichi D3A Val, and the Nakajima B5N Kate.
In the actual invasion, the Americans had the upper hand. The element of surprise was ironically the advantage that the US had, even though it was the Japanese who were going to sneak attack. As previously mentioned, the US cryptanalysts found out which island Japan was going to attack, so they moved their ships closer to Midway. During the battle, Japan had a total of 4 heavy aircraft carriers, 2 light aircraft carriers, 2 seaplane carriers, 7 battleships, 15 cruisers, 42 destroyers, and 10 submarines. The US had 3 heavy aircraft carriers, 8 cruisers, 18 destroyers, and 19 submarines. Even though the US might have looked like it had fewer ships, war always comes down to the strategy. When examining the Battle of Midway, it's important to address a gap in the narrative, the aftermath. The effects of the battle went beyond just naval strategies and the shift in the balance of power. Its consequences were felt throughout the war and influenced subsequent engagements, ultimately shaping the course of World War II. Its consequences of these events can be defined more clearly. They caused the Japanese to shift their focus from the offensive to the defensive, while simultaneously demoralizing them and uplifting the USA. Furthermore, this demoralization of the Japanese led to the suicide of many commanders, including Admiral Yamamoto in 1943.
Raymond A. Spruance was an admiral who commanded the Task Force 16 and a fleet of both the USS Enterprise and the USS Hornet. Additionally, Admiral Frank J. Fletcher also led Task Force 17, which consisted of the USS Yorktown. Yamamoto was in charge of all the Japanese aircraft carriers. He was an officer for the Japanese who was very relentless, and he never gave up. Chester W. Nimitz was the commander of the U.S. Pacific Fleet during World War II. During the Battle of Midway, Nimitz organized plans to destroy Nagumo's carriers.
While the 4F-4 Wildcats were directly attacking the Japanese, the US dive bombers were amongst the highest clouds, sitting at 10,000 feet above sea level. The Japanese had no idea that they were there. The dive bombers dived down and blew up much of the main bow, while the torpedo bombers swooped in to finish off what was left of the once afloat supercarriers. With this momentum, torpedo bombers were even able to finish off two other destroyers, the Guma and Mogami.
This battle resulted in many short-term prosperities within the American convoys as it uplifted the troops, directly dropped Japan's morale, and halted Japanese expansionism in the Pacific Ocean. However, the Japanese continued expanding, changing their plans to target the northern parts of New Guinea, which led to the famous Battle of Guadalcanal. Additionally, there was a decrease in boat casualties caused by ships and an increase in boat casualties caused by submarines.
This battle created many long-term effects, as it not only stopped Japanese expansionism in the Pacific, but also aided in the ending of World War II. Furthermore, this battle marked a turning point in the future of naval warfare, making it advantageous to participate in naval battles with aviation capable of performing many tactical maneuvers. Had this crucial battle not taken place, the world may have been remolded in a completely different manner, ranging from warfare and tactics to potential culture and territory.
To summarize, the Battle of Midway was a significant turning point in World War II as it disturbed the Japanese expansion in the Pacific by sinking 4 of their 6 supercarriers and halting their plans. In addition to disturbing the Japanese expansion in the Pacific, it also marked the first major victory for the US in the war. Furthermore, the heroic actions of American pilots and sailors in the battle have been widely celebrated and praised for their bravery and sacrifice.